Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special guest here with me, the lovely Miss Deborah. How are you doing today?
I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Hanging tough. I'm good. How you doing today?
Hey man, same. Likewise, I'm blessed to get up and get an interview with you. We've been working on this for a couple of weeks. For those who don't know, Miss Bond, she's a singer, voiceover. I mean, you have so many things on your resume. Songwriter, entertainer. You've been on Sirius XM radio. I mean, first and foremost, where do you get the time to be able to do all of these things and still be a singer?
Ooh, man, I don't even know. The universe, God, all that good stuff. Because I am. It's hard for me to. I don't say it's hard for me to sit still because I do. Quarantine taught me that I actually can sit still and chill, but it's. I just am a bit of a busybody spirit. You know what I mean? Like I like to be involved. I'm used to working, to be honest. I'm gonna have to give my mom some props on that because as soon as I turned 16, she was like, "Oh, you want this? You want this? You better go ahead and get a job and figure out how to make some money and get the things that you want for yourself." So I've always had kind of a strong work ethic, and it's sometimes a crazy balancing act, sometimes you try to juggle a lot and, you drop a few apples here and there, but I will make a way if I can. So I've been working.
Hey, well, before we get into it, let's start from the beginning. Okay. They say you grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. Let's talk about your upbringing. How was the music scene growing up during the time period for you? What were some of the artists that, you gravitated towards as a youngster?
Ooh, I feel like I was raised and coming up in a good time musically because I was born in the 70s. So as a baby, like a little youngin, I was already kind of immersed in funk. As I tell people, I was born into the funk, like I had, my father was big on, Parliament Funkadelic and all of that, and Bootsy and Sly and all of that heavy funk. And then my mom was, really into like Minnie Riperton and Stevie and the Blackbirds, the Heat Wave, all that kind of stuff. So I was already kind of hearing it. And then as I, got a little older and became really a part of like the MTV kids generation, I was pretty much just immersed in like anything that I could see, feel, hear from of course, Michael and Prince and Whitney,
right,
and all of that, Lionel Richie, all that, Tina Turner. But then it was also like I was really into like George Michael and the Eurythmics and Duran Duran and Heart and the Go-Go, like just so much good music was out, in the 70s and 80s. And for some reason, like my earliest memories, I just was enamored with music. I was just like drawn to it, especially once I got to watch it on TV and see visuals for it. I just, very daydreamy kid, very like, just into all of that. So really musically around like growing up, it's funny, I didn't grow up in a musical family, but I just feel like I was a part of this like really amazing wave of like when you turned on the radio, you could literally go from hearing, someone like Grace Jones to then listening to like Fleetwood Mac and like, so I just have a wide range of influence. I really am a sponge with music. I love it all of it. So my childhood memories are obsessive about that.
It's funny. I share similar stories. Of course, the time period is different. And in my opinion, the time period means a lot. You're talking about the end of the 70s. It's a lot going on in the world. And at that time, music was one of our instruments, if you will, our voice, our power. And a lot of music, came through the airways and people gravitated towards it different. It started to form rebellions. People started, uprising against certain things that were holding them down. So at what point did you realize that you wanted to be a part, be a creative? When did you know at a young age?
I knew since my memory developed. I don't have a memory of not wanting to sing, which is kind of crazy. Like I don't know how it was planted. I don't know. There was no defining moment. Since I can remember, I was just drawn to music and drawn to visuals, like, and drawn to being in front of people sharing, like, since I can remember. The crazy thing is, like, my very first memories of even like entertaining people or being on stage is like around, like, I don't know, well, elementary school. I was doing a lot of like all the little choruses and all the little plays and stuff. I'd be that little kid with the big glasses that'd be like, I want to play in Peter and the Wolf. I want to be somebody, you know. And like, even Halloween, I was like, would have my mom like put all kinds of like, I wanted to be zombies. I wanted to be like a wicked witch. I really liked performing for people, just being like seen. And so, like, wildly enough, my very first memories of like sharing and expressing myself were through public speaking. I entered these like oration contests at like around 8, where you would have to like memorize famous speeches, or some type of form of like prose by someone legendary, and you'd have to memorize it and recite it for an audience. And no idea what drew, I don't know why I decided to do that, but when I heard that that was something I could sign up for, I did. And oddly enough, I started like winning and winning over kids older than me. Like, I'd get up and recite the last poets, like, you know, Maya Angelou and Dr. King. And, you know, so I think that kind of set me up for being a singer, because it put me in a position to not be afraid to look at you, to say something to you, to pull you in. But it just first off started with speaking. And so, I don't know, it's always been in me to like be in front of people and show people, you know, my forms of expression and my passions, which happen to be singing. And the crazy thing is, I was kind of shy. Like, maybe not shy is the word, but I had kind of low self-esteem growing up. I didn't think I was the coolest kid. I didn't think I was like, I just was, if I wanted to do something, I would just try it. But you know, and if I fell, I'd get back up. But I wasn't necessarily that kid that was always like, I'm gonna be a star, you know, like,
right. Real
I was, because I had a lot of insecurities, but at the same time, there was balance with this interesting boldness to try things. So, you know, music was just in my soul. It was just in my soul since forever.
Well, it goes to show that, you know, that itch, you know, you start to scratch more and more, you become more curious, but, you know, that light bulb clicks in your mind when you go from just being a student to now being a respectable peer, you know what I mean? And I just want to know, you know, what about your parents? Like, what was their response knowing that they had a daughter that, you know, was this talented and passionate about being a part of the, you know, the scene of music?
It's funny thing is that I was incredibly shy with sharing with my family. I definitely wasn't one of those kids that grew up in the church, so I didn't sing in the choir. My father was a Black Hebrew Israelite growing up, so that's where the name Deborah came from. That's a Hebrew name. And you know, he was only around for a very short time as well, so he never got a taste of it at all, really, growing up for me. And my mom's, she was like a very, to me, typical 80s working 9 to 5. You know, she was just working. Right. She was a young mother. You know, I had young parents, and I have an older sister. And funny, spoke my mother up. She's calling me right now.
Shout out, Ma. Shout out, Ma,
Duke. So she didn't really know, to be honest. Like, she knew I liked public speaking, because she did see these contests that I was entering, and I would bring home trophies. But she didn't. With singing, I was really like, I would do it with my friends, like my little homegirls, you know, in school. I had a neighbor who also could sing. And so I would get with her and we would write little songs around like 10, 11 years old. But I remember my mom got remarried like around between 10 and 11. And she did know I liked music and I liked to sing because I did musicals here and there. And she asked me to sing in the wedding and I said no. And I'm like an adult now, we're like totally feeling awful that I did not give her that blessing. Like she was really like bummed, like, really not gonna do this? And I was like, I don't want to do it.
Man.
So she didn't really know about that, how serious it was for me until much later in life. It's crazy. She did. No one in my family really picked up on that, and there weren't really any other artists. And my uncle, my mom's youngest brother, had a funk band, and I remember growing up seeing him wearing like platinum silver space suits and thick like space boot looking, like he was a complete George Clinton. You know, he used to come over to me when I was a little girl and be like, you know, the funk lives in you. The funk lives in you. And I'm like, it lives in me. You know, I didn't know that stuff. So that was the closest I really had to that kind of influence. But my family was really not hip until very late.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, salute to the aunt. Salute the aunt for letting you know early, putting you on game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I used to see costumes in my grandma's basement. They would have rehearsals, I guess. So I would see like congos and like just like microphones, and I would go into the basement and I would like peek around in all of his stuff, and I was like really thought it was cool, but that was like the extent of any of it. So I just kind of had my hands, even from a young age, I had my hands in everything. I was doing, you know, public speaking. I was athletic. I was also, you know, then I was writing songs with the homies. And so it was a very interesting childhood when it comes to music, because it wasn't the typical, like I grew up singing in the church and all that stuff. And the family you always knew, they didn't know until I finally was like, listen, this is what I'm out here doing. So,
yeah. Of course, like I said, you know, born in New Haven, but for some reason, DC loves to claim you hard body. All right. And since DC claiming you, and I'm from Baltimore and DMV, damn it, I'm claiming you. Okay. We claiming you. All right. So let's talk about what brought you to DC. I mean, your first time there, you're pursuing college, right? Journalism. What made you pick that path at first? What about journalism?
Partly because I had already won the public speaking, the wanting to be in front of the camera. By the time I got to like high school, my mom just did have an idea that I wanted to sing, but she was definitely not on board. I'll be real. She was like, had that fear that many parents have of the entertainment business and the unsteadiness of it. And, you know, and so she was always encouraging me to, you know, continue to like keep my mind open to other things that move me, that I have passion for. And by that point in time, I had a couple of waves. I thought I was going to do maybe teaching, then I thought I was going to do law. But I always had this thing about talking to people, relating with people, investigating situations, trying to get to the bottom of things. That's why the law part of it was kind of big, because I wanted to be like a prosecuting attorney. I kind of wanted to put bad people away and all this stuff. And so I started leaning more towards like the news. Like I was also in high school very into like 2020 and Dateline and those shows that had all this investigational reporting and all that. I was really into that growing up. Murder mysteries. I was like a heavy reader of mysteries and things. So I developed a love for journalism kind of indirectly. And the more I would talk about it with my mom and kind of express that there's like an excitement for like investigating, but also being on camera to relay the news, you know, she encouraged me to look into that and like pursue it. And so at 17, you know, I came on down. Well, we looked at a couple of schools all over the place, Temple University, North Carolina Central, all these spots. When we came down here to visit, real talk, I wanted to go to Howard. My mother, people don't really know that New Haven, Connecticut, New Haven is kind of hood. And so it's actually not kind of hood. New Haven is hood. So growing up kind of like as a little round-the-way girl, growing up, seeing some of the things I saw within my family, within the neighborhoods and stuff, my mom kind of wanted to steer me away from that world. And in the 90s, coming to DC and checking out Howard, she was not feeling she wasn't feeling it. You know, in my family, no one went to college. No one even had an allegiance to an HBCU, because no one even probably in my family knew what that meant. So as much as I was trying to convince her to let me do the Howard thing, and I also grew up kind of strict, you know, I was like a worker bee. I went to school, ran track, mock trial team. Like took Swahili. I was never idle because of other people around my way were, and interesting things were going down. So my mom kind of basically was like, you know, I want you to go somewhere where there's going to be a little bit more of a focus. And she also knew that I'm her fire child. Like I'm the middle kid and I'm a curious child. So she kind of worried about my wildness coming out at Howard. And so we went to visit American University, and beautiful campus, absolutely beautiful campus. That was the very first thing that stuck out with me, stuck out with her. Pretty cool journalism, communications program, cool. I still wanted to go somewhere else. Moms and I kind of came to a compromise that I would be right up the street from Howard. I could go hang at Howard. I could go hang out with some of my homies from high school at Howard, but that, you know, American was going to be the move. And once I got here, it didn't matter whether I was at U Maryland, American, Howard, Bowie State, wherever. I love DC. Like I fell in love with DC. And coming from New Haven, there's not much to do for Black people. I grew up in predominantly Black inner city type neighborhoods. So I had a little bit of the both worlds because I also went to private school for freshman, sophomore year. I went to Catholic, all white, all girls school. And I told my mom I hated it. So junior and senior year, I went to all Black, round the way, right up the street from my house, high school. And so she knew I had an open mind to be around all different types of people, but American definitely was going to be a bit of a culture shock because it was like 2% Black and a predominantly international school. So my roommate was from Japan, you know, which was crazy because she was basically Black. And so DC just scooped me up. Like after my freshman year, I didn't even want to go back home for the summertime. I felt like Connecticut was boring. I felt like there weren't many opportunities. I was also coming into contact with people of color and Black people who were getting educations and had goals. I had a lot of people around me at home that weren't like that. So I just immediately got sucked in from 17 years old till now. Like I'm always going to have this special place in my heart for DC. And the American University also had a cool music program. So my mom was like, I don't think you should focus on music, but you should, if you have a passion for it, throw that in the mix. So I studied broadcast journalism, but I also minored in vocal performance. So I was mixing my love for journalism and music all along, you know. And then the city was thriving, go, backyard, Northeast. Like it was just like everything was kind of like musically, people would be surprised, like who don't live in DC, to know how much music is important here. You know what's up, you know, like. And so when I got here, I noticed it was a band city. People love bands. They like to hear actually like percussion and live music. And so for me, I ate that all up. I just, you know, I got whipped on the city kind of quick.
Well, you know, I didn't, you know, of course, I didn't get to the DC or start traveling until the 2005, you know, traveling with my high school, playing some sports teams. So, but naturally the music, you know, you're going to hear go-go, even here in Baltimore. There's going to be some DC stations that put emphasis on go-go music. So, you know, it's like we cousins at this point. We accept it the same way they accept club music, if you will. You know, rest in peace, K Swift. But it's so many, you know, artists, right, responsible for the sound and creating that culture. And it's amazing to actually be a part of it now, you know?
Yeah, I love it. And, you know, I love the fact that DC claims me. You know, I come home, I go to New Haven, I go back up there and I try to, like, you know, encourage the community to support what I'm doing. And they do in a sense, but that city is more about like hip hop, R&B, you know, and like DJs, and a very specific sound in music, that Mary J. Blige, that like they pop, you know, what's on the radio. That's what, you know, New Haven is about, that life. So for me, I came here, once I started performing here, it was like, I didn't have to like it was just a different appreciation for what I was doing, because I was doing really that what folks started calling neo soul, and I really wanted to also have this adult contemporary sound to it that's a little bit more like reminiscent of what I was growing up with, the Anita Bakers, the Phyllis Hymans, the, you know, Melissa Morgan and all of that kind of stuff. So for me, this city was really already embracing that, and they were embracing like just bringing live music to the table. So I, you know, once I started hearing DC's own Deborah Bond, you know, when I was getting introduced, I was like, okay, I'll take it.
Now let's talk about this this team, Third Logic, that you ran across. How did that happen? Where did you meet these guys?
I met them in the studio, actually. I met one member of that collective. Shout out to Robbie McDonald, a phenomenal producer and guitar player. I met him in a studio session for a friend I went to AU with, who stayed in town after she graduated. She invited me to sing some backgrounds on a demo she was working on, and she had invited Robbie to play guitar on this demo. So we met in the studio and exchanged information. He sounded really, really good, and he was like, you sound really dope. And at the time, he was in a band with two of the other members of Third Logic. They were in this bigger collective, like a funk, heavy funk, kind of brand new heavies kind of vibe. Okay. And so I immediately kind of had my eye on that team based on that studio session and then researching their music. And surprisingly enough, crazy enough, Robbie and I started dating, and him and two of the other members of this band decided to step away from that band and just become like a production team. They were just looking for people to produce. And since I was dating Robbie, I was like, yo, what's up with me? Like, what's up with producing some stuff for me? You guys got the exact sound that I'm looking for. And so they demoed a couple of tracks for me, and I immediately loved. One of the very first songs I heard was like a piano ballad, and I ended up writing a song called Sweet Lullabies to that. And that was like my Anita Baker moment. It was the kind of sound I was going for. And I literally just asked them if they would stick around with me. You know, I applied for some grants for DC Arts Commission, got a couple $1,000s to do some demoing of some stuff and to record, and they were down to help me create some music. And I mean, I was just like, if you guys are with me to be like my production team and my band, I'm with y'all. I don't need to look any further, because this is the sound I'm going for. They had a mixture of funk. They had a mixture of gospel. They had a mixture of even like alternative rock. They had this neo soul kind of Maxwell. They had everything I was looking for at that time, early 2000.
Right.
And so I just got with them and started making music with them and making records, and then immediately got into the city. Anywhere that new artists were able to be showcased, we were jumping on stages and we were like honing our craft. And the journey with them in those years between 2003 to 2012 were just magical, because, you know, I finally had a band. We were getting out in the community, getting out in DC, performing. DC had a lot of venues that allowed for up and coming acts, not just bigger acts, to perform. Shout out to the whole U Street area. You know, we were like crushing stages, and it was a competitive time. We had singers like Yazara, you know, Cy Smith, we had Eric Roberson, you know, we had a lot of cats out of Howard. Then groups like Divine Nature and this group out of Baltimore called Fertile Ground. I mean, Fertile Ground was killing the scene at the time. And so we were all kind of like, oh, you saw their show? Oh, we could do better than that. Like it was this healthy competition for your performance that DC had in that early 2000, that I was with it, and Third Logic was with it. And so it was all, you didn't have Instagram, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have none of that. You might have MySpace. That's about it. Maybe Black Planet.
Right, you know? Right.
And so it was word of mouth, and it was about two things. It was about your record, and it was about your show. That's all you had. And that was going to give you your credibility. So I'm thankful that I was kind of reared and brought up in that time, because now you think you do a TikTok for a minute and, you know, you get 1,000 likes in 1 minute. You think, oh, yo, I could go on stage and I can do this. But it, you know, it's not like that. You know, there's a lot of People need to experience there's some shows where nobody claps. They need to experience some moments where you tried something and it fell flat, or you have that first moment where you get a standing ovation. Like TikToks and media, is not gonna really craft a showman or an artist like that. You really have to have that stage experience, and you have to know how to really write a classic record. So Third Logic, they were the beginning of that journey for me. And I'm so thankful for them, because they stuck with me and they really prioritized me above any other artist that they were working with. And, we toured together, we wrote together, we practiced, we broke bread, we dreamed of ideas together. And I owe a lot to them. I really do. Yeah.
Much praise, for real. I mean, doing the research, I seen that it was a lot of emphasis put on the marriage between you and this team.
Yes.
I gotta ask, your first album, Day After, you guys started recording early 2000s, correct, for this album?
Yeah. We started, once I got those grants, we went in the studio and we started with 3 songs, and then I applied for another grant and was awarded another one for more money. And we finished the record thanks to that grant. So big ups to DC Arts Commission. And I was just, it's crazy. I literally just got like a quick little goosebump moment, because I remember how excited I was to record my first album. I had, as a kid, like with my first job, I bought a karaoke machine that had a 2 tape decks. So I taught myself how to multi-track when I was in high school through a karaoke machine. So I already was like studio ready, wanting to get in the studio, dreaming up the ideas for the art, all this stuff. And it was a community effort. Found homies to come into my living room, take pictures for the cover, just regular round the way folks. I didn't have no big budget for no fancy graphic designers or anything like that.
Right.
So that was a very magical time. That album is for me still like probably the sweet spot of my career, because it was organic, it was raw, and it opened so many doors. And there are songs on that record in particular that people just want to hear that. Let alone I got 2 other albums afterwards, or collabos with all these other people. They want to hear stuff from, especially DC and Baltimore, because that was the community that I worked that record very hard in Baltimore and DC. So they still want to hear See You in My Dreams and like a lot of the first joints. And so it'll never get tired to me. I'll never get tired singing those songs. I'm very proud of that work. And to be a youngin' in my 20s, working on that, and like to really get it out and to see a beautiful response, that will always be it's a time I'll never forget. I'm so thankful for Third Logic, so thankful for them. Yeah.
See, for me, that's really my introduction, See You in My Dreams. Before we get into the story behind that record and what made you guys pick that single out of all the other ones on the album. But for me, growing up, getting ready for school, high school, during that time period, MTV Jams and VH1 Soul were the only networks that most of my peers were watching early in the morning. Hip hop, you really couldn't get that too early on MTV. BET was playing something completely different early in the morning. So MTV and VH1, they had that thing going 24 hours a day, just music. So MTV Jams, that's where the major mainstream are pushing all of these artists, but VH1 Soul kept me in the loop with neo-soul artists. So it helped me, introduce me to artists such as yourself, Calvin Richardson, Jamiroquai, so many different artists where, it helped add to the Jills, the music soul childs, right? Angie Stone, India Irie, the sound that had already existed, because again, like you said, I remember at that time period, I think Kendrick was very popular, when they came out with that Family Soul. And neo soul was definitely on the rise. So I just want to say, like, it's a pleasure to have you on, because I never would have thought back then that I'd be interviewing you, a decade or so later. So, life works in mysterious ways,
Yes, indeed. Wow. Thank you for that. That's crazy to think that. That's another whole movement, like, that gives me more little chills, because like with See You in My Dreams, we all knew that was like the hit song of the record. We could see it from the response and how quickly I wrote it. I wrote it so fast. I am not a fast writer. Many of my peers who try to collaborate with me can vouch for that. They still waiting on tracks from me, waiting on demos and stuff. Like, Debo, you finished writing that song yet? So when it comes fast, there's always something special to it. And that one came really quickly. Shout out to my brother, bass, Funky Chuck, as we call him, who produced that one and played bass and also helped me write the chorus for that one. That one just felt special right off the break. And we knew once we started performing it for audiences that it had to be like the lead kind of single. So we tried to pitch it to radio stations. It was tough during that time to get radio love as an independent artist. And around that time, probably more so like around 2004 or 5, I started working at Sirius XM Radio. Okay. And you know, what was the defining game-changing moment for See You in My Dreams, which was a true story as well, because I was dating my guitarist, and the first year of dating, he went on this major tour with this like reggae ska band. And so that song was literally about, I cried in his arms this morning because I knew he had to go. And it was about, my guy going on tour and like having to miss him and thinking about him all the time and all this stuff. So it was also a close to home song. But one of my homies at Sirius XM Radio, Irvin Green, shout out to you wherever you are. I think you're on the West Coast now. Irvin worked in IT. And Irvin knew that I was a singer because it was getting around XM Radio. Although I was working in the music library, like I was like cataloging music and doing a lot of performance rights, data entry stuff. I basically sat in a room full of CDs and read liner notes all day. It was I loved it. It was like, I'm just learning about music, reading liner notes, inputting data so people get their royalties. He came to my desk one day and he was like, yo, I got this company called G Light Films and we like do music videos. And like, I heard your stuff and it's good. Like, what's up with us doing a music video for you? And at the time I was like, music videos or like they bootleg. Like I was definitely doubtful. He remembers that. I was kind of like, all right, cool. Back to work. Like, I'm at my desk, like, okay, at my cubicle, like, So I didn't get back to him about it. So he came back around to my desk like maybe 3 weeks later with a MacBook or like a laptop and was like, yo, what's up with a video? I was like, I don't know, I don't have no money for a video. He was like, I don't need your money. I work in IT. I'm here. I got him straight. Like, what's up with a video? It's my passion. I said, I don't know. What like, do you have any examples of your work? He's like, that's why I brought up my thing. Pulls out the joint, pulls up some videos. And I'm like, oh, he's like legit. Yeah. And he want to work with me. And he want to work with me on love. Oh, so I said, look, I'm down. Like, what's up? Like, let's try something. And basically, I didn't even have an idea. I never do any treatment for videos. I did a treatment for my second video, Perfect, but I didn't do, or my third video, which is Perfect. I just was like, what ideas do you have? I don't know. Like, and he pretty much had a storyboard for it, treatment for it. And like, we knocked that joint out in 2 days in Logan Circle, DC, and then in this little pier in Virginia and at my homeboy's house in VA. And when it was done, I was just like, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe I did, like, this is a real music video. And like, this is like really happening. Right. And to take it a step forward, working at XM Radio, there was a colleague, he's turned into being my mentor, Cayman Kelly, who hosts on a station called Heart and Soul right now. He was also kind of my radio mentor. I was telling him about it. I showed it to him. He was like, oh my God, you got to get it. This new thing, like BT Jazz and like VH1 Soul, like you should try to get it on there. And I'm like, I don't know people. And he's like, well, I know this chick. Shout out to my sister, Majima Pickett, who is now the head of R&B for Spotify.
Wow.
Black woman, head of R&B at Spotify right now. Our articles written all about her. I knew her back when, like 2004, she was working, I believe, for either BT or VH1. I think it was VH1. Okay. No, it was BT at the time. Came in, was like, we should pitch it to her. I know her. Like she would probably look out and see if we can get it on rotation. And she was like, Deborah Bond? I got a record right here on my desk. Like I got Day After right here. Of course I'll put her in rotation. defining moment. Everything changed because once that joint got on BET Jazz and VH1 Soul, Sub Soul was the name of that show, where all the indies were giving love and their music videos were getting, getting some love. My career really, really, it was like, that was a street cred I needed in DC. Because DC was still kind of what I jokingly say that DC and Baltimore hazed the hell out of me. Like, that was hard, man. Doing shows with DC, you got to work. Baltimore are not, that city ain't easily pleased. So you got to work. They'll sit there and be like,
yeah,
for real, and I've seen it with myself and other up and coming artists. So once the video dropped, it was like folks started taking me a little more serious and people started falling in love with the song even more. And it was in heavy rotation. And then radio stations were like, oh, maybe we could throw this on WHUR. So I also have to shout out Majima and Irwin for like really, getting me to the next level with the music video, because that really is what started to open people's eyes once they saw me on camera and, saw the band playing in the video and all of that. It set things majorly off, majorly. And for me, I was like, I have a video on national television.
Yeah.
I was that kid that grew up watching videos every day, while eating cereal, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, these kind of interviews and these kind of conversations like are so important and healing, because when times get hard, it reminds you of how far you've come. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just having that moment right now, sitting here like, wow, man, that was a magical time.
Listen, when you really think about everything, even if you go back and look at the video today, you can kind of see the beginning, right? You can still kind of see the youth. You're still a rookie, just trying to soak it all in, I got to ask though, took you a couple years before the follow-up. Now, of course, you attributed to being, a long writer in the process of, how you cook up the lyrics. So was there any issues in between, or was that what it really was? You just had to find inspiration to go in a different direction?
Definitely writer's block, definitely growing up and like dealing with life, balancing work, because I was heavily at that point, that once Day After dropped, between Day After and Madam Palindrome, I was like trying to play a lot of roles. I was trying to be kind of like wifey, girlfriend, living with my guy, being present for my relationship. Also, we were very gig focused. We were show focused still at that time. So we were like performing heavily. I mean, hitting Philly a lot. Philly was really showing me a lot of love. I opened for Kindred, the Family Soul, so many times during that time. I love them. They're like fam, like now, just opening shows with them, doing showcases. We were very performance focused for quite a few years, which also kind of distracted us from settling down and writing. And then by the time we started really getting into writing, there were all kinds of like just life circumstances, moving into my 30s, like life changes, like things get kind of real and like not so wild and free as, your 20s. And so a lot of things kind of came up against my just creative energy. It was a bit of a grind time, a work time. And I was also getting involved like with anything and everything I could. So I was doing like, got involved with Grammy board, Grammy chapters. I started doing a lot of like live broadcasting on Sirius XM radio. So it was a lot of distractions that made it very tough for me to get focused, along with the band as well. Because at the time we were all like, had day jobs, you know what I mean? Like trying to balance day jobs and do music. So that means like you're working between the hours of like 6:30 and like whenever you go to bed. Yeah. And then you're getting up and going to work, trying to have clarity of mind and be focused. So it was a kind of a growing pain kind of period. Once we kind of like put our foot down and we're like, we got to get something out. Then there was like the magic started to come back again, but it took a while. The second album was a labor of love. It was like birthing a difficult child, like holding up, like carrying a baby way past the due date and feeling like I got to get this out somehow. So it was definitely real for that one. That album has a lot of interesting meaning as well.
Listen, I gotta ask, because when I hear the album, it does give me Jamiroquai influences, that funk, that sound. And I'm just curious of what made you go in that direction. You know, what made you even name it Madam Palindrome? Like, what inspired all of that? Because it's clearly a different direction from the first album. And I know you wanted to do that on purpose, because like you said, you transitioning in your 30s, you're grown now. It's time to, wake them up.
Yeah, and we were trying to do that because also at that time when we were getting close to releasing that album, there's always a trend and a wave within even the indie community or even your local community and beyond. But the trend at that time and the wave at that time was very lush production. Everybody was kind of trying to tell you who mixed their record. People cared a lot more then too about like who mixed that record. Like I heard the same person that mixed D'Angelo's joint mixed your joint. That kind of a thing was the talk. And so we were going into this, like, let's not have a sophomore jinx. Let's show up much harder and much more professional and much more polished. Funk was always in us, but I will say that with Madam Palindrome, the influence of Funky Chuck, the bassist, he became kind of the leader of production for that record. Whereas with Day After, it was more so kind of like a three-way street between the three of them. And so Robbie's taste was a lot more, and his style was a lot more what I would call like the Maxwell, Sade, very smooth, lush stuff, whereas Chuck was always trying to think of how to keep funk, in there. And so once he kind of like stepped up with all of this music, all these ideas, it was like, okay, I can see where this is going. This is definitely going to be a bit heavier on the funk, heavier on like string arrangements. Chuck's main instrument is actually violin. His second instrument is bass. So he plays in orchestras and things. So he always wanted to make sure, we had elaborate string work and that kind of a thing. And so we were in this like show improve mode. Like we were in this like make sure everything we do continues to go up. And so the artwork drastically changed for that record. And that was also like a time, let me see if I could. That was also like a time when artists really cared. Like, you had Day After, and it's all, it's in the hard case, the old school hard case. Right. This is me in my living room. That's me and looking in my living room. And then we go to Madam Palindrome, which is like a softer case. When you open this joint up, there's like a 20-page booklet full of completely beautiful, mind-blowing art that a good friend of mine did out of Japan, like lyrics and all kinds of like quirky palindromes hidden all throughout the art, everything. So we were like, take it up a notch, And so, and everybody seemed to have been doing that at the time. Everybody was like, your video got to be the next big thing. Your album art got to be the next big thing. And so once we got midway through writing this album, we started kind of analyzing what the song's topics were about. And it seemed like that at that point into it, maybe 4 or 5 songs in, everything was about a perspective, like seeing something this way and you see it that way, but do we see it the same? Is there commonality? And I remember talking with like my bassist and like, we were trying to think like, what are we going to call this? And he was like, yeah, because we kept talking about perspective, but how sometimes you can be on one end and someone can be on another end and you think because you're on different ends of the spectrum that your perspective won't match. But in this, there's some kind of common ground that brings you together that's kind of like the same. And so Chuck was like, that's like a palindrome. You know the palindrome? I was like, yeah, palindrome. Ooh, that's interesting. Palindrome, a word, a number, you can read it the same forward and backwards. Right. And he was like, yeah, you're kind of like this, like you write up with perspective, like, but you try to see you try to make it so that my point of view could be your point of view, like a palindrome, like you're kind of like this queen palindrome, like Madam Palindrome. And I was like, that's interesting. He's like, think about it, Madam, M-A-D-A-M. Spell it backwards, M-A-D-A-M. That's a palindrome. And I was like, and so then we went into this like very cannabis infused, red wine and cannabis infused kind of like brain dump of like how we could have fun with this, like this concept, and how we can take the rest of the record and build on this Madame Palindrome, this queen of perspective, this funky diva queen who can see things your way and my way. And so we started going even harder. Like the album is a palindrome. If you play it from top to bottom and let it repeat, the end and the beginning are interchangeable. No one even, that's a nerd Easter egg kind of like music geek kind of a thing. But right. Chuck and I went hard with that. So all throughout the booklet, there's palindromes. If you take the art and you hold it all side by side, it's like a palindrome. Lyrics, all kinds of palindromes. I recite things in there that are only the geeks, you know, maybe 10 years from now, people will be like, oh my God, I just figured that out. But we were also playing upon like Parliament Funkadelic and P-Funk. Their artwork was really kooky and cartoony, and like there were characters, Sir Nose, and all this stuff. We were totally kind of going there with it. And so Chuck, I really have to put a lot of this to Chuck because he was the one that really went there with me on the kooky, very trippy, funky, you know, it was a lot of the two of us dreaming those ideas up together. And we had a good time with that. So much of it went over people's heads because at the time Neo Soul was actually going down. Yes, so yes. And so we spent a lot of money, we put a lot of time and effort into it, in hopes that people would kind of pick up on some of the treats and all of the wild like things that we threw in there for you to discover. Mm-hmm. And so this one will also have a special place in my heart because this one was what put us on the map with like serious producers around the world and people who I love and respect, like the group Incognito out of London. And like, you know, Louis from that group heard this and basically I introduced him at a show I hosted at Warner Theater in DC. He walked out on stage and held this up, said this is the best album he heard all year and everybody in the Warner Theater needs to go buy it. Like I admire this group, and that's, you know, so it put me on the map. And surprisingly, this album came with so many ups and downs. But one of the more frustrating aspects of this album was when we were recording it in a studio in Maryland, and we weren't really feeling the mixing of it. And that's really important for a record. If your album isn't mixed really well or done right, it can make the whole record sound like crap. And so we were not feeling the mixing of the record and how it was coming together. And so one night out of frustration, I was like, you know, I really need to I don't know, we should stay in the studio anymore. We should maybe find someone else to mix this joint. And I remember Robbie, one third of Third Logic, was like, well, who's going to mix it at this point? Like, we're almost done. And I was like, well, who mixed this person's album, and who mixed Bjork, and who mixed Sting, and who mixed this and that? He was like, well, let's find out. And we went online and we literally looked up Brand New Heavies, Jamiroquai, Bjork, all these artists that were kind of like funk, electronic, all kinds of stuff infused. And we looked up their liner notes, who engineered their records. And we emailed every person that we found and sent a generic email, like, we're an independent group. We'd like to share some music with you. We're looking for someone to mix our record, blah, 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 right?
Right.
Nobody hit me back but one person, this agent out of London. She is an agent for a brother named Al Stone. Al Stone did all of the mixing and mastering for all this Jamiroquai stuff. All this Jamiroquai. So I'm working at XM Radio. This woman calls me at XM. I never forget that conversation with her British accent, and was like, sweetie, I've gotten your email about Al Stone, and, you know, I'm just curious, you know, let's talk a little bit about your budget and what can you do? And I was like, you know, got a couple $1,000. And she was like, oh, sweetie, you can't afford him. Literally what she said, sweetie, you can't afford him. He's maybe about $2,000 a track. This record got 11 tracks. So I sent her an email. I said, let me think about this. I'll call you, you know, let's talk soon. I sent her an email. I said, I can't really, you know, I definitely don't have that $22,000, $50,000 budget for mixing and mastering. So, you know, all good. Because when I have the budget, I will one day. I'll circle back, right?
Right.
So I sent her Well, I sent this email to Al Stone, but his agent reached back. So I reached back to Al Stone and said, heard from your agent, can't afford you, but I will be able to eventually. Keep me in mind for the future. You know, I admire your work with Sting and Jamiroquai and all these people. He wrote me back and said, I listened to 3 of the demos because I sent 3 demos. A song called 535, song called Say It, and a song called Nothing Matters. Oh no, You Are the One. Mm-hmm. He said, let's leave my agent out of this. I just want to mix this joint. He mixed that joint in 7 days, charged me probably close to nothing. And took this record from sonically to like, well, I can't like, all through Skype. He was in London. He was like, send me all of the files, send me all of the acapellas, all the sessions. I want to do this for you guys. He said, this reminds me of Jamiroquai. This reminds me of my homies, JK. So we're like, oh my God, that did Return of the Space Cowboys. You know, like, and so he mixed the record and he had his peoples master it. And we would jump on Skypes every day. He would have these cool wakey, eggs and bakey text messages like, I got another mix for you in the can. Check it out. So we would send him notes on Skype. He would say, I'll send you a cleanup of the mix.
Right. And
yet again, another little magical moment in all of this journey because he really did the damn thing. And we got to ask him all these questions about working with Jamiroquai.
Right.
You know what I mean? How they recorded their stuff. And so, yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that was an influence on this record because not only was it an influence, but then someone who mixed it.
Listen, I've been listening to music for a while. I have a great ear. I'm not professionally trained, anything like that.
Wow,
but
man.
The moment the album starts, you hear it. The antennas go up.
Yep.
All right. So naturally, I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe she done some background vocals for these guys. Maybe there's some history that I don't know because, you know, I was exposed. I think it was Space Cowboy. That was the first time I heard of Jamiroquai. Mm-hmm. You know, seeing that video on VH1 Soul. Who the hell is this guy? Who was this man with this big hat? He grooving, he dancing. The music just sounds crazy.
Right.
And, you know, you get caught up into that new artist wave and you want to hear more. So, of course, when I heard that, I'm like, wait a minute. It can't be no coincidence. Of course, some of my favorite songs like Nothing Matters, Blind Paradise. These are fire tracks, but we got to talk about You're the One. And I got to pick You're the One because, of course, the visuals in the video. Yeah. I mean, what made you take this approach? Now you're not, you know, a rookie artist no more. Now you know exactly what you want. So who came up with this concept for that video, You're the One?
Wow, I got to give a shout out to a brother named Hilton, who's out of Baltimore, who now he lives in LA, and his cat named Aaron Keeney. The two of them had a production company called Fresh Kill. And I remember we wanted You Are the One to be the first single. It's the only song on the album that is not live. It's a track. I think the only thing that is live on that joint are some horns and guitar. The rest of it is actually a track. All the other songs are like drums, everything is live. Right, so we wanted that one to feel kind of radio worthy because we were also like really trying to like get more visible on a mainstream level. So we were like, okay, this is kind of the closest to like a radio jam. So we knew that was going to be our focus. And we knew it was catchy. Happy You're the One That Found My Heart. It was a simple song, no bridge, just in and out, boom, feels good. Definitely feels like a Jamiroquai funky kind of vibe. And so, with You Are the One, we immediately were like, okay, after the success of See You in My Dreams being on television, we got to get another video on television, especially while I have a connection to these outlets. Right, and so we do what we always did back then. We researched like we did when we found Al Stone. We just went online and Googled like film directors, music videos, and we came across Fresh Kill. And immediately I remember Chuck being like, I like that name. That just drew me to it. Like I thought like it made us like, who is this? Because we were trying to find weirdos. That was the other thing, is like we didn't want to do anything that looked like anything anyone else did. And I'm still that way to this day, you know? Right. And so Fresh Kill just sounded weird and different and quirky. And so we looked up some of their work and we were like, damn, they kind of tight. Like it's a good unit right here. And so I reached out to them and, you know, sent them the song and they were with it. And by that point, the first album was doing well. We were also performing and we were being very good business people with our money. So we had a budget to pay for a video instead of like the first one that was on the low. We were like, we got a budget, what you want? We'll pay you to do this. Right. I don't have a concept, but I got dough. So oddly enough, Hilton, who was, I told Hilton to come up with a treatment. And he basically was like, I said, you know, I don't want this to be a typical love song video. I don't want it to be like me saying I'm happy and I'm singing to the guy. I want it to have some kind of weirdness or different vibe to it. And he said, "Ooh, I like that." So he sent me a treatment. It was like, I have this idea where you're like a real life girl, but you live in a paper world and you're getting ready for this date. And no one really knows who your date is until the end. And then your date's actually the flip, the opposite, which is also this whole perspective thing that we had with the record. So he was like, your date's gonna be a paper man living in a real world, and you're a real girl living in a paper world. And I was like, how the hell are you gonna pull this off? You know what I mean? I saw that all the treatment had all this paper stuff. And I was like, how am I gonna afford to make, like, how are we gonna even do this? Like, it has to be special effects. Midway through that whole process, Hilton hits me up and says, yo, I got a project with DJ Quick on the West Coast that I gotta take. I can't turn it down. I can't do your video anymore. Bye.
Nice.
So he's like, but my partner in crime, Aaron Keeney, he's the main one with the special effects and the camera work anyway. So why don't you let him take my treatment and just let him do it? He lives in Baltimore. Y'all can make this work.
Okay.
So hit up Aaron. Aaron was like, oh, I could totally do this. He was like, as a matter of fact, coincidentally, me and my dad are renovating my house right now. And so it's a complete crazy house. And basically I can just cover everything in paper. Like I can make this a paper house because it's like, it's already disheveled and kind of wild. So literally Aaron took Brother Man Hilton's idea and like brought it to life. Like when I showed up to that house and walked in, he said his dad and his girlfriend at the time helped him, spent like a full 24, 48 hours of just drawing, like outlining things in black and he covered the whole house in paper. It looked like a fun house. I couldn't even believe it. It was so cool. Like it was, and we literally shot that joint. We shot it in about 24 hours. Like we didn't sleep. I mean, like some of the ending shots where I'm like doing this little dance in the kitchen. I was so tired, I had bags under my eyes. I was taking whiskey shots, I was trying to stay up and in it because we were all so tired, but it was such a fun experience. And like, I knew just from the treatment and from like filming it, like I knew it was gonna be something special. And that joint, that one blew everybody out the water. That one, VH1 Soul played that video probably 2 to 3 times a day, every day for like maybe a year. So I made a lot of new fans with that single, with that, and people became like into the song quite a bit through the video. And of course my peers were like, damn, she one-upped us. Nobody did a video like this. At that time, like nobody was really doing that. So, and no one independent, you know, with smaller budgets was bringing something like that to the table. So we, yet again, that's the goosebumps. Like that video set some major things off for me. It like, and that was a very high time for our career between meeting Al Stone, getting on the radar of a lot of UK artists. We had a singer named Lewis Taylor on that record who has like a cult following. Lewis Taylor is like the freaking truth. I would hear Pharrell and like all kinds of people talk about Lewis Taylor, like, and no one really knew who he was. He was this very mysterious artist out of London who became very reclusive, unfortunately. And so putting that song on my record, that song had been marinating for about 5 years. People thought I brought him back out of hiding or something, which I didn't. I just had that song for 5 years. Like the record got done. Yeah. So it was just a really beautiful sweet spot with Madam Palindrome. It was a hard album, but that led to a lot of bigger stages that I've never performed before. A lot of, I traveled to London, did my first shows in London. Like it just led to some kind of game-changing things for my career. So special one right there.
Listen, man, for those who don't know, may have not seen the video, please go on YouTube. It's available. To me, it's still a great song to this day.
Thank you.
I was playing it earlier. It's the visuals, like you said, it was very trippy. So it's very different. I just find myself, every time you see the video, you see things differently.
Yes.
Right? So that's what made me, struck my interest and say, well, damn, how did they do this really? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, shout out to the director, shout out to everyone that was involved, especially with the 24-hour designing of the set. That had to be, torture, trying to make sure everything was perfect, but it paid off at the end. It did.
That video was 90% real life stuff. It was only maybe about 10% special effects. So that was really cool to see how magical that came out to be. Yeah. And I was very proud of that video. I wanted the world to see that, especially at that time, because it was very different.
Right. Well, it was, like I said, solid album, solid follow-up.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the recent, Compass. First and foremost, y'all make sure to support that. Came out in, was it March, I believe?
March.
Let's talk about it. How were your feelings at the moment when creating this album? What did you want to go as far as the direction, the sound? What were you thinking at the moment?
I wanted to go very far away from Madame Palindrome. I wanted to be probably the most transparent that I could be as an artist, because I had also been developing a fan base and a social media presence at that point with Madame Palindrome. And it was like a complete brand that I had kind of built around the look of Madame Palindrome, the look of the shows, look at my fashion, everything. I'm really a brander. I'm a journalist at heart, so I'm always trying to tell a story. And so the story of Compass was a much heavier one. And at the time, like I remember there were times like doing interviews, like maybe 2015, 2016, I would have people say like, what is it like to be such a happy person? You're so happy, like you're so bright, like you wear all this yellow and I used to like joke, like I'm not always a happy person. I have a complete dark side. I'm a very yin and yang, very Sagittarius, like there's a duality there. So but my brand did not show you that. My brand showed you, hey, everybody, what's up? It's Deborah. How y'all doing? Oh my God, this is so good. And so, so much had changed. Yet again, another 10-year period, just like between the first two albums, time was moving on again. And I was like, yo, what's up with this music? And so I always, have to really say that like Compass was birthed from a feeling of losing my way in life, from what I affectionately call a midlife crisis, feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older. I don't know what I'm doing. Times are changing. Am I keeping up? Is anyone going to care? Like, I'm not getting gigs. I'm like performing at a bar every Sunday. Like what's happening to my career, and I needed to get something out of me. I needed to show the world that Deborah is not always happy-go-lucky. Deborah has a darker side. Deborah is also from the hood. Like there is a hardness to me. I have seen a lot and experienced a lot. So like there was this desire to show a different side of myself right off the break when I decided I wanted to work on it. And 2016, I always make this statement that 2016 is where the journey began, because 2016 was a life-changing year for me. The end of 2015, I quit my day job and decided to do music full time. I also basically I ended after the end of 2015, into 2016, left my job, but then got all of these really cool opportunities to travel through music. But I also ended a 14-year relationship at the top of 2016. And this was my bandmate. So that changed the entire dynamic of my creative world, my band situation. It was the weirdest high and low year, 2016 of my life, because I had ended a relationship with someone I thought was going to be my husband. But I was also traveling the world. I had been in the Middle East doing residencies in Qatar. I went on a world tour with Incognito. They invited me to join their band.
Wow.
I was like musically living it up, but personally, like not very happy. And so, on top of the fact that everything became Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, followers, it was not really about your music as much around these times. The music landscape was changing. I was getting older. And so, I got to a very rough place in 2017, 2018, because no one was booking me for shows. They were like, you haven't had an album since 2011. What are you doing out here? Like, you're backing everybody else. You're singing backgrounds for all these artists, but you're not doing anything. And so I became very stagnant around that time. I was meeting artists who weren't familiar with me, who kind of treated me like a nobody. It was a very humbling time. And so all of that led up to a decision to take a departure from my band. I had already lost one bandmate. 1/3 of Third Logic quit because we broke up, and that was understandable, but that was tough. And he was also kind of like a driving force of the production team. So having him not around kind of changed things quite a bit for us having a productive situation. So we weren't creating very much. Life was happening. The guys were having families and kids and getting married. And so at the end of 2018, 2019, led into 2019, I decided I have to let them know that I'm going to try to do some music without them. And that was never in the plan. And I had to have hard conversations with people that I love, people that were my family, the two brothers that were left. Shout out to Kennard Cherry, my drummer, and Funky Chuck. You know, I sat them down and said, I love you guys, but I gotta start working with other producers. We're not getting anything done. And like, if I can't bring in help and you guys don't want the help, I've got to move on. And that was really tough. And it was like, that kind of happened like towards the end of 2019. And I had decided I want to figure out my own way. I need to find my way. I'm feeling very lost. And that's where the Compass visual came from. So then the world shut down three months later.
Right.
Who knew? You know?
Life, man.
So, you know, at the time I was asking people for demos and tracks. I was asking people that I admired if we could collaborate. Nobody was getting back to me. Some of the bigger names that I thought would maybe be interested in working with me, I won't call them out, but they didn't have time for me. So I started kind of just digging in my pool of my family and those around me, some new school cats that I had come across that I've been working with on other ventures. And they put together, like, I literally just kept pulling at tracks. Like, can somebody give me a track? Can somebody give me a track? I really want to work on a record. And I was very blessed to come across yet again another Third Logic-like kind of group of people out of Virginia. Mainly Virginia and Baltimore. I say that's where the Compass led me. So if you look at the artwork for the cover, the illustrator, there's parts of Baltimore's Sugar Factory, I think, or Domino. There's the harbor, like there's all kinds of DC, Virginia, Richmond, Baltimore visuals on the Compass. If you look deep into the art, because that's where the music led me to. And I met some really amazing musicians, and we were all in lockdown, and I was getting stimulus checks, unemployment.
Got that budget now.
So I started buying stuff. I got some new speakers. You know, I set up a little thing right here. Boom. I literally could just reach. I literally sat in this seat for all of 2020 and recorded my record right here. My vocals right here.
Wow.
And
that's a blue mic, right? That's a blue mic.
A blue joint. Yeah, man. Like, I had that from doing jingle work for years. I've been using that because I was working for a jingle company in Amsterdam. So I would just record from home anyway. But I got a little setup over here in the little corner of my pad, and I was isolated in here. And I basically reached out to my network and asked if folks could play their parts in their living rooms or in their homes, and like send stuff to me in my Pro Tools. And I would sit here and I would have my friend who's the executive producer of this record, phenomenal bassist named Brandon Lane. The world is going to learn more and more about him. He would come over because he lived right up the street. We felt safe enough in our bubble. He'd come through, he would help engineer while I recorded my vocals. And literally we did this whole thing I started working on this album last, March, maybe 2020. I was done by November 2020. start to finish, from writing the lyrics to recording the vocals to getting everybody to lay down their drums, lay down their bass. Everybody did it at their crib. Everybody that I called to come in to help me, from Nashville to LA to Baltimore to Richmond to London, they all did this stuff at home. And I found an engineer in Richmond who has been working with a group that I love called Butcher Brown. And he mixed and mastered it. And
wow.
I could not believe, one, that I accomplished that in a year. I can't believe I accomplished it in my home. I can't believe that the musicians looked out for me in the way they did. But I think we were all needing a healing and something to do last year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially when we got to the height of lockdown, you know, around springtime. So the album, and right when I decided, I knew it was going to be called Compass, and I kind of had an idea, like I started dreaming up the artistic visuals for it. I became very like immersed in the story and wanting to tease the album. I teased the crap out of it all last year. Yet again, a lot of it went over people's heads. I decided you will not see me always in makeup. You will not always see me dressed up. You will see me in my gritty form. You will see me in black and white quite a bit, like in a non-color situation. Nobody was going to the hairdresser last year. So I was filming stuff in here, singing, kind of raw looking. I wanted to show people just that there's this other side of my life happening, and I know other people can relate to it. And we were all struggling at the time. You know, we were not sure what was going to happen with this pandemic. So for me, I became very plotting in what I started to share on social media. I rebranded myself. I took off the yellow bell bottoms and the colorful clothes, and I started wearing a lot of black. I shaved the sides of my head. I like just went edgy right off the break. And I started to share things and visuals with the fan base that was like, I have this line in a trailer thing where I say, everything ain't always pretty. Everything ain't always pretty. I started using that because people always will think life is so, you watch social media, everybody's great. Everything's great.
Yeah. So
everything ain't always pretty. And for me, these last 4 years in particular were exceptionally hard. I crossed into my 40s, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, wow, like I'm out here trying to do music in my 40s. Like, is anyone gonna care? Like I had people kind of telling me I'm too old, or telling me my music's outdated, or all these things that had me in my head and had me, you know, feeling all kinds of ways. Newly single entering my 40s, where I thought I was gonna be married by now, like all this stuff. And so Compass really was about, I'm still in the midst of it. I'm just trying to find my way. I just wanted to find my way to new music, to a new team. And I wanted to share these little stories and experiences that have been happening since about 2016, but mainly really through the last year or two. And, you know, so everything down to the fact that it's all hand drawn and there's no color, and the titles are one word and lowercase, was all about humility and diminishing, and like things that I was feeling. I was feeling kind of diminished. I was feeling lowercase. I was feeling black and white and gray and hazy and smoky and like unclear. But at the same time, kind of having this quiet acceptance of who I am, and kind of like, you know, you've grown, it's cool. Show this shit, be yourself.
The evolution, yes.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
So it's special. It's another special one.
I will say that I think it was best for you because your fans get to really see that growth, right? You're grown now, you know, you're not the young girl, you know, just mesmerized by the city and town. You know, you've been through so much. And it's really, it's a testament to the life that you know, we all have to go through at some point, no matter what field that you're in. But once again, a testament to your work ethic, because to some, they wouldn't even know, you know, you just mastered the art of juggling all of these tasks. But the most important thing is, if your mental's not right, you know, if your confidence isn't where it needs to be, these things can haunt you, right? They can completely take you off your course. But luckily for you, you embraced it. You accepted the new challenges. And for me, when I hear the album, it gives me Maxwell, Black Summer Night vibes, right? When he first came out,
Somebody told me that. Yeah.
That's why initially I wanted to ask you, was this an installment? Was this part one, part two? I know I probably shouldn't be revealing it too soon, but I kind of gave me those vibes.
It's definitely an installment, but it doesn't mean that the next record will be Compass 2. It might be another record that drops, and then 2 years later, Compass 2 comes out. Compass definitely represents some form of searching, finding, discovering. And so, or where I'm being led to. So there will be more, but I don't know if it will be the next thing you hear from will be a part 2. But I did give it that one, Roman numeral 1 stamp, because I plan to do more Compass installments, definitely. But it probably won't be the next one that I drop. But
I peeped that.
It'll come when I think the time, when I'm led to it. Just like I was led to, I was really terrified to drop this record. I was terrified. I'm thankful for my friend circle and like the people that encouraged me to not be afraid to drop this joint, because I was like, people not gonna like it. They're used to the Third Logic sound. This is a whole new set of producers. 2 of the producers who are both in Baltimore, I've known for the longest and for years. And then the rest are new guys, young guys. And so I was just scared, man. I was really, really scared to drop it. But yet again, life surprises me. And once you drop a cool video, which I did for radio, the single, the love was there immediately. Before the album even came, the love was really strong for radio, really strong. And so it lifted me back up. It did its purpose. It's a very healing album for me, an honest, raw album. The other big thing is I wanted to not harp on my vocal insecurities. I didn't want to have everything sound like extremely polished. I wanted the album to have this rawness and this edge. So sometimes there was a take, there was a mistake, leave it in there, let it be. Like, don't overthink this. Madam Palindrome was the overthinker album. I wanted this one to be kind of going back to organic, but also like grit, literally that word, like a little bit of grit on the mixing, a little bit, you hear the aging of my voice, you hear that I've been around for a minute, I wanted it to display reality, because I feel like we are in a very illusion-based world. So for me, once it was out for the world to taste, I mean, I really love this. This album is so special to me, so very special to me. And it's doing better than I thought.
Hello. I mean, listen, hearing a story, having a conversation with you now, it definitely gives me more context, because for me, some of my favorite songs immediately became Time and Stride. Stride, definitely Stride. That was probably my favorite. I just kept going back and forth to those two. But then
that's everybody's jam right there.
But out of nowhere, you hit me in the head with Smolder. Now Smolder is that shit, okay? It gives me that Crown Royal feel, that Jill Scott, like, I don't know, the thoughts that you were going through while creating this album, the doubt, the insecurities, but everything happens for a reason. And it was meant to be that you were supposed to put this project out, because you can hear the growth, you can hear the change, but most importantly, this is good music.
Thank you.
It's music for the soul. You can feel this. You can take what you're going in your own personal life and apply it, especially Stride. Like, you hear that and you're like, you know what? I can do this shit. I
wrote that for the world, man. I wrote that for the world. That's what I'm talking. And then shout out to my co-writer on that one. His name is Gordon Chambers. Gordon actually is a phenomenal singer and songwriter. And Gordon has penned some of everybody's favorites. He wrote I Apologize for Anita Baker. He wrote the joint, If You Love Me, Say It. If You Trust Me. Brownstone. He wrote that. He's a Grammy nominated songwriter. So when I heard that song, I thought of Anita Baker, and I knew he had written I Apologize for her. So I asked him if he could help me express what I was going through and get it out. But the cool thing about that song is really it was an analysis of my personality at the time, because we were in quarantine and we were like, everyone's freaking out. There was riots going on in DC. There was a lot of heaviness. Yeah. And I was in here enjoying life. I'm not gonna lie. I was so happy for the solitude and for not having to be somewhere to work and show up and network and whatever you do as an artist. And I started thinking about how I always have been that kind of person that when things are kind of falling apart around me, I kind of just like take it in stride. I kind of like, I'm a very like pick your head up and keep going type of girl. And so it was a personal song about my personality being a kind of person that just like, am I going to sit and cry over this all day? Or am I going to pick up my head and keep on this journey? And that's who I've always been. I never, as dark as I can get at times, no one will really see that because I'm a more suffer in silence personality, but I'm also like, I gotta have fun. I gotta have a good time. I am a fire child. So I gotta have a little fun. So I've always been kind of I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna take this in stride. I'm gonna be all right. And so, but I also knew that it would touch others because people at that time needed, when the album really was being created, we were just going through it as a world in the world. So that one is a fan favorite, and Smolder.
Yeah, Smolder's good. I mean, I can't wait. I hope there'll be some visuals for that.
Call to action. I had two different people say that they were down to help me work on a video for it, and they both flaked. I mean, they both like did a millennial, what I call a millennial ghost, where they just never followed up, never called me back. So I'm actually looking for film collaborators because Smolder is very important, and I would love to do, and actually Stride. So I'm out there looking for people to collaborate with as far as film people, producers, video, directors. So keep my fingers crossed.
Listen, you've done it time and time again. So someone's going to answer to the call. It wasn't meant to be with the other ones previously, obviously. So hopefully this next person that steps up to the plate accepts the task and bring it to life, because visually it sounds amazing.
Thank you.
And like I said, it's just certain words you can't, you don't have anything to describe the feeling of certain things. So like the same way music has helped shape you and mold your career, and you're still adding on, to your journey. I mean, what is the future of the music of the sound of Miss Bond?
Yeah, well, now I did a little bit of a light touring over the last few months, hit up Philly and New York and New Haven and some North Carolina, did some performing, and that's been going beautifully. I have a couple of big shows coming this month in November. And as I've been kind of preparing for winter, because December and January, February for artists gets kind of quiet, kind of slow. So I'm actually starting to get back in the lab. I done added a few pieces to my little tech setup over here. And so I'm just going to start writing more and demoing more. I'm trying to drop new music by next summer, the latest. But I also have a couple of little surprises musically coming before then. So there's already things in the bag. There's already things of bubbling and simmering. So a lot more music is coming. I've been really excited to just be performing again, because it's been a while since I've been doing my own shows with like in my way. I've been doing a lot of background vocals for people lately. So back on the road, back on stages, back in the lab writing. And of course, because of the times that we're in, a lot more content to share.
That's true. Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, recently you did some work with Zoe and Tall Black Guy Productions. You were just at Magooby's, had an amazing show. So if you guys get an opportunity to see Miss Bond and Zoe and the gang, y'all make sure y'all pull up. I mean, even the opening gang was a Little Big Band, if I'm not mistaken.
Little Big Band,
And I mean, honestly, it's still elements of the culture. Right. That show didn't really require a lot. Everyone, the band, everyone was orchestrating. And we had a good time that night. I know recently you just did a show at the Kennedy Center. How was that?
That was phenomenal. I hadn't been on that stage doing my own music since about 2013. So it's been a time coming, and it was just, I had a good ass time that day. The audience was so receptive. It was like a great crowd of people there. Just wonderful response. I sold a lot of physical copies of my music, which was very nice. Still some purists out there who will buy a CD, even if they can't play it. They don't have a CD player. They just want it for, nostalgia. So it was a beautiful time. And it was just an honor, because Kennedy Center is the Kennedy Center. And to say that I have been on a stage there doing my own music was such just beautiful. And also I spent a good little chunk of 2020 doing live streams and doing things in here where I have to be my own tech support, and I'm trying to like sing and perform like in my living room. Actually, if you look at the Kennedy Center's website, you'll see that I did what's called a couch concert right in here last spring. So it was nice to actually be on the stage and be in front of human beings, because I'm over the live stream performance.
Yeah, the energy is very different. It's very different.
No audience, and there is also, you have to be your own tech support, like it gave me so much anxiety trying to hope my internet don't drop, or one time I did a live stream and someone immediately started mowing the lawn, and my windows were open. So you could hear all this noise during my live stream, so back to stages. Kennedy Center was beautiful. I'm so excited about just continuing to perform for human beings in person. So I got City Winery opening for Nate Smith and his group Kinfolk coming up. I have Blues Alley doing my big birthday show on the 22nd of November for my birthday at Blues Alley, which is a legendary spot that had closed down, didn't last through the pandemic, and they brought it back, which is beautiful. Everyone from Dizzy Gillespie to Phyllis Hyman, Rochelle Farrell. I've sung backgrounds from Mickey Howard, all kinds of people in that space. And so now and I've done it as well on my own, but I haven't been there in a while singing my own music. So now it's back open and I get to do a really cool birthday show on the 22nd. So those are my next two big ones coming. And then, we'll see what else happens.
Okay, what about NPR? I know that's a popular segment everyone likes now. Is that a thing that you would entertain and do?
100%. I'm a bit of what I call a sore loser, so I don't do the contest. Okay. I don't do the Tiny Desk contest. I would love for them to take interest in me and invite me like they do most artists. You got to have a certain, street credibility, followers, numbers. Everything is a little bit political out here in this world. So I'm hoping that they get wind of me and invite me. I think almost once I did a Tiny Desk submission for like their contest, because that's like once a year. But I backed out. I decided I just want to be invited, like a lot of my peers have been invited.
You will.
We'll see.
Listen, you will. Trust and believe. If they know better, they're going to call you up at some point and give you your flowers, because you definitely deserve it. Before I let you go today, got to ask you a couple questions, because a lot has changed in the music scene. All right. Came and had into the industry. Indie soul is what they classified it online, right? Yep. But again, it was introduced to me as neo soul. Yeah. Looking back, what are your thoughts about neo soul today in 2021? Does it exist? Did the genre actually help more than it hurt some of the artists? Because again, I noticed artists like Music Soul Child and many others were complaining about the lack of support, right? Yep. So I'm just curious of your thoughts and feelings on just neo soul looking back on it in 2021.
Neo soul was such a beautiful movement, and it really was the part of the catalyst for giving me the courage to step out there. So it will always have a special place in my heart. Like Music Soul Child, I did get to a space where I didn't want to be considered a neo soul artist, mainly because there's so much to me. Like there's tracks on Madame Palindrome that were completely inspired by like Pink Floyd or disco or like something that's not, right. So I had this period where I wanted to be just an open, a blank slate of art, like you can just anything I want to be, because once you hear neo soul, you immediately think maybe a little bit more amateur, independent, not certain level, and a very specific sound. So it was really kind of disheartening to see how much it faded away as a popular genre, and how many artists were like, I don't even want to be called, I don't want to be connected to that word and blah, blah, blah. But for me, it still exists. There's some good stuff out there in that world. I'm also a mentor to a lot of artists. I love mentoring. So some of my mentees are up and coming neo soul artists that are killing it. So it's out there. It's still thriving. You do have to do more searching for it now. You do have to, the world is being like force fed what the higher ups want you to see, which is a lot more trap, a very specific style of singing even. I was joking that the full voice vocalist is not in anymore, like where you just sing full out and like strong back in the day, like Jill Scott, Jennifer Hudson.
There you go.
Now everybody's wispy and soft and like very high nasally kind of vocal tones and like that full voice, like almost Jennifer Holiday type. That is considered very old school right now. And that's how I sing. So that's kind of hard. That's hard to really kind of a hard pill to swallow. But I think we are also, as a people, getting fed up with what we're force fed and just wanting to find stuff for ourselves. And the support for neo soul is still out there. The support for soul music is still out there, but it's real tricky because some of my family, some people I know who aren't music people, they will not spend $20 to go see a new artist that they never heard of, but they'll spend $200 to go see a show they may have seen 2 or 3 times because it's a celebrity.
Right.
And that's really, it kind of sucks, you know, because like, how can we make a living? How can we get our name out there? You know, it's bad enough we don't get no royalties from streams. So, you know, so how do we make a living if you're not willing to come and take a risk on a new artist you might have discovered on Pandora or Spotify? That is a real thing. And it's a real thing with Black people. We don't always support our own. We sometimes really love to support what sounds Black in a not Black package because it's so cool that it ain't a Black person. It's like, yo, I've closed my eyes and she sounds Black. I love this. But then I know you can open your eyes and see about 5 other Black artists
get
who
the
are
sauce
good and if not better, and you don't want to give them no love. And I'm that girl that's gonna like put my peoples on, you know, blast about it because I'm an artist, so I see it happening firsthand. And so, you know, it is what it is. I just think that neo soul's still here. It's not dead, and it's good stuff out there. But I do think the way we support music and art and new music in particular needs some tweaking.
Yeah, I mean, again, it will never die, you know, because I'm one of many that grew up being influenced under that culture of music. And to go back with Music Soul Child, I remember during that time period, he wanted to take some, you know, some challenges. He wanted to take it a different direction. A lot of people were upset. He was rapping. Yeah. And when he finally came forward to, you know, explain his reason for, you know, no one, you know, challenged him on that. It was as if like, oh, he's right. And they just walked off. And it was just like, no, listen, I mean, to understand, like to understand that these artists are talented in what they do. And now because of social media, the streaming era, talent is watered down now, right? It seems as if like the ones with the most talent, they tend to get overlooked, right? And
everybody sounds the same. Everyone sounds the same. I get so many, I don't want to I won't call no names because, you know, these are artists in their own respect and they out here working. But there are a few like some of these pop cats, like they, like, especially the females, I can't differentiate who's who sometimes because all their voices actually, literally their throats and their tones sound the same. And like, I grew up where the grit and the rasp of Tina Turner sounded nothing like the sweetness of Whitney Houston, who sounded nothing like, you know, Prince, or sounding, you know, like it was so much diversity. And now it's like, no, you got to fit, or you gonna be, you know, have to deal with it the way you deal with it. So I've had quite a few of my musical friends in the last 2-3 years decide to quit, and really talented people. They decided to give up on it because it's just hard. It is hard out here, especially to make a living. That's the biggest part, is because streams and all that don't pay. People don't want to buy physical copies anymore. Half the time, getting people to fill up a room is hard. So where does the money come from? How do I pay my bills? How if I had a child I wanted to send to college, how would I do that with the kind of income that artists make? So it's real out here, but you know,
I was going to say,
I'm still striding.
Listen, go a little bit into this, the streaming that you explained about, because again, when I went to the show, and I went to many shows, there's even comedians, right? They'll have mixtapes and things out on the table. And of course, my generation stream heavy. So my first thought is like, I don't really have a disk drive to play these, things. So naturally, I'm just going to go to YouTube Music. I'm going to go to Tidal. I'm going to go to Spotify. But from what you're informing me, you're not, the royalties, it's not well to pay off at the end of the day.
Oh gosh, no, it's horrible. It's horrible, especially Spotify. I actually was anti-Spotify for a while. I had to break down because now my music's back on there and I gotta have an account and I gotta see what's up with the world of Spotify. But I mean, Spotify and Apple Music pay like a fraction of a cent per stream. So when you have somebody like Taylor Swift going public saying, I'm taking all my music off of Spotify, and this is a major artist who probably had, you know, maybe a million streams, maybe got her a check for like $2,000.
Wow.
Imagine how much someone who's independent, who may have maybe in 1 month, you might have 5,000 streams. I've literally seen payments for a fraction of a penny in my royalty account. 0.09 cents.
Wow.
For my streams. That is a real thing. Like, it is, streams do nothing for us, like financially, nothing. You get a fraction. That's why even if you don't want to sell your album, a lot of people put their music on what's called Bandcamp.
Right.
Because Bandcamp, you could buy it digitally. And let's say you sell your record for $15, you're going to get probably like 13 of that directly to you. Or if your single is sold for $2, you're going to get like $1.50 of that. Whereas if someone plays your single on Spotify, you're getting 0.0009 cent.
Wow.
Real talk. I mean, and people have like jokingly like put up their royalty statements. So you can see. It's laughable. So if that's what you're bringing in from streams, and then your shows, you're independent. So they ain't offering you what they're going to offer an Erykah Badu. They're not going to offer you the kind of money they're going to give freaking Ariana Grande or Bruno Mars or Anderson .Paak. They're going to offer you some little rinky-dink bit of money to get on stage. And then you got to pay a couple people behind you in the band. Right, how do you live this way? How do we make a living? It's a real problem. Streaming is not helping us at all. Even if, I discovered you on Spotify, cool. But then what? Are you gonna come to the show? Are you gonna buy the full record? Are you gonna not stream it? You gonna download it?
Wow.
That part of the industry really gets under my skin because it's really hard out here to survive financially and as like just a grown-up adult trying to, you go to law school, you put in 4 years of law school, and you take your bar and you pass your bar, and then you start representing people in court and they say, yo, can you just do this for like $5? Can you represent me for $5? Every time. I mean, why can't you do this pro bono every time? Like, you went to school so you can make that lawyer money. Like, you know what I mean? And the crazy thing, you spend money on the education so that you can get that money back down the line. I spent a lot of money on these and I'm not making none of it really back.
Wow.
And then you get taxed on what you do make, so it's like, it's real. And a lot of artists, we could all agree it will make you want to give up just on the financial part alone. Then popularity, social media numbers being a reason why people won't book you. Back in the day, you had booking agents and people who would promote your shows. Now, basically, you're the promoter. If you don't overpost every 5 minutes, I got a show. The venue blames you for the small turnout. Back in the day, I would blame the venue. Like, where your patrons at? So it's a new time. It's a harder time. But luckily, people are innovative. People trying to use this, social media and these content to their fullest. They're trying out here. So, I mean, luckily, I'm just a hard head, stubborn. I'm not giving up personality because there have been plenty of times where I'm like, how do I win here?
Wow.
I don't want to be broke forever. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it seems like the same old thing that's been a part of the industry, even from the beginning. A lot of our major artists, it's a lot of issues that go on with their estate, financially. It's a lot of hands in the pot. And is that one of the reasons why you chose to stay independent, never went, to sign with a major at any point in your career?
Yeah, I never had an interest in it. I also, being a journalist, I also did a lot of what you do. You know, I interviewed a lot of artists, and you know, the stories of having to be changed. I interviewed Music Soul Child, and you know, some of his stories. Him telling me he wanted to do a reggae album at one point, and they were like, "You can't do a reggae album." Like the label being like, "No," you know, that control. And I am, when it comes to art, especially, very controlling of my art. So the thought of relinquishing my power to a label, the money that I would owe them, also being a part of organizations where I am around celebrities and around that world kind of freaked me out. So, you know, I just never, I never had a desire to get in that machine that heavy. And now a lot of my favorites are leaving their labels and going indie. You know, a lot of big Brandy's indie. Like a lot of people are indie now, you know. The biggest thing was I was just very fearful of being told I would have to change. You know, cut your hair, you know, perm it, put a weave in it, get your booty injected, like twerk your videos, put a little auto-tune on that jump, throw like 90 different rappers mumbling on your jump. Like I just didn't want nobody telling me what to do.
Right.
And I was willing to take that sacrifice for that freedom. And I'm still happy that I did that because I can do whatever I want to do artistically. And nowadays, I can push it out there as the best I can, and people, you know, will taste it and get, you know, say they like it or they don't like it. But the labels, the majors have never been. We had one major meeting with a label. That's where the term "day after" came from. Actually, me and Third Logic had a meeting at Sony. When we were working on, I think we were done with Day After, and we were working a little bit on maybe a little bit of palindrome. I don't know, but. That was it was Day After, because I remember the next day we felt so excited about that meeting. We were like, oh my God, we might get signed, blah, blah, blah. And Day After was supposed to represent this feeling of excitement, or this feeling of something the next day after something life-changing has happened in your life. And so I remember thinking, maybe Sony, because I remember walking in and seeing Maxwell on the wall and seeing Sade on the wall. And those were my favorites at the time. And so but I quickly let that dream go. Nothing even came of that meeting. It was a great meeting. There was definitely some, you need to be more hip, you need to be more of now kind of things that came out of that meeting. And I was like, nope, you can't change me. So we'll see you when we see you.
Hey, you know, everything happens for a reason. It's as if, you know, the story writes itself out. Of course, you have to put the work in, right? Yeah. And that's what you love to do. You love the challenge, and you've been doing so well at it that, you know, I feel like the creator has a good ending for you, you know, on your journey. But music, I mean, you're still relatively young in your career. You still have a lot more to do. You have a lot more to go in regards to adding to the legacy. I'm
not done.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna be around supporting, you know, hopefully I can pull up to that birthday party to support, you know what I mean, give you flowers in person. And I gotta ask you though, what are some of the upcoming artists, producers that, you know, you're feeling right now, that you got on your phone right now, your car that you're listening to, that you're inspired by?
I love this group, Butcher Brown. I've been loving them since before my last album came out. So luckily I got them on the record, but there's some dope producers. A lot of them are playing on Time and Stride. Butcher Brown, DJ Harrison, who is like his own production guy out of that unit. On a major scale, I would love to work with Anderson .Paak. I would love to work with Pharrell. I seem to be led to like Virginia, which is Pharrell's.
They got some good stuff coming out of Virginia.
They got some good stuff. There's a singer named Leanne La Havas out of London that I really love. I love her voice, her tone, her writing. I've seen her live a few years back. She's still undiscovered, but not at the same time. Honestly, I love Lettucey. I've worked with her and backed her. I would love to work with her. She's not even up and coming, but to me, she's still kind of walking into her moment right now. She's got her first Grammy, you know, last year. So, you know, but newbies, there's a group called Black Folk Don't Swim, and they're out of DC, and I think they're going to be one to watch. They kind of remind me of an funkier, The Internet kind of vibe. Who else?
You're gonna have to send me that link. If you're talking
Black
like that.
Don't Swim. They got some good stuff going on. I've been like, I'm a little stuck in old music because I keep discovering more influence from all the older stuff. So
right.
From the new school, it's really like only a handful I'm really paying attention to right now. Like, I'm trying to think of anyone else off the top of my head that I can think of. I'm like blanking out right now. I need to open up my iTunes and see who am I rocking to right now. But it's usually old school music.
Right. I mean,
it's like undiscovered Herbie Hancock or some you know, Marvin Gaye acapellas that leaked out that I'm always searching for old new stuff.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, the new school, a lot of them are under the radar. I did a show with a group called Jank Setup. And they were hot. They surprised the hell out of me. Out of New Orleans, Tank and the Bangers.
There you go. I was getting ready to ask you about them. Yeah, they're doing good as well.
They're doing very well.
Yeah.
You know, I love Christian Scott. He is a instrumentalist out of New Orleans. He is a trumpet player who is like combining like traditional like jazz with like this modern new school. Some of his songs even have like a dash of trap in it.
Okay.
Christian Scott is the truth, man. That brother, look him up. He's so dope. Christian Scott, some of my homies, a brother named Ben Williams, who is out of DC, but is now I think in LA. He's been in New York and LA. He's a phenomenal bassist and vocalist. A singer named Erin Allen. Look her up, ERYNALLEN. Love that chick's voice, man. I can't even put her in a box. It's like the best of like India Irie meets like Eric Badu, Joss Stone. I don't even know. Really talented.
Wow.
And I'm a big fan of Nate Smith, who is on my record and who I'm doing this show with. He just dropped a new record with, and it features Van Hunt, who I'm also a big fan of. Van Hunt's been around for years and is now kind of making he's re-emerging, and him and Nate are working on music together. But Nate's group is called Kinfolk. Kinfolk is a dope collective. I mean, it's jazz, but it's this new Kinfolk record has Stokely, has my brother Kokai, who's a rapper, has a phenomenal jazz vocalist named Michael Mayo, then has like phenomenal violinist Regina Carter, and then has like a tremendous vocalist out of New York named Mama What. So Nate's a drummer. He plays drums on stride. He doesn't do any singing, but his record is featuring so many amazing folks. Van Hunt, of course, who now is Miss Berry, Holly Berry's new boo.
Okay.
Yeah. Word up, Van Hunt. I'm a big fan of his. That's a little bit of what I'm digging into these days. Yeah.
Okay. I only ask that because, you know, every generation we go through that, right? There's always going to be a portion of people saying, "Oh man, the music is too popular, it's too mainstream."
Yeah.
But when I came across acts like the Internet, right?
Yep.
Thundercat.
Yep.
That universe in itself. I mean, from Steve Lacy, right? Matt Martian.
Yep.
I mean, there is a change in the sound, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Even with the upcoming stars, I like Lucky Day. He's solid as well.
Lucky Day is dope. K Tronada, another favorite.
Come on now. K Tronada is one of the hottest producers in the game.
I'm dreaming to work with him. I want to work with him so bad. Yeah.
Yo,
it's a wave right now. It's a wave.
Yeah.
And they're slowly getting some creaks in. I mean, Tank and the Bangers got a Grammy nomination already.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, you know, like there's room at the table if the powers that be just let us have the room. Let us sit down. You know what I mean? Like, because there's some goodness out there that's so different than all the stuff you just keep hearing the same I like Dua Lipa. I like, Snow Allegra. But it's like, I do hear this common sound, like, but there's all kinds of, there's some straight funk. Kendra Foster, who's out of New York. Kendra Foster sang backgrounds she been touring with George Clinton and P-Funk. Like, she's like younger than me, but she also sang backgrounds for D'Angelo and won a Grammy for co-writing Really Love with D'Angelo. And she's out here doing it, and she's still under the radar. And this chick has gotten a Grammy for writing with D-Lo. And she was on that whole tour with the last record he had. So, it's out. The music is out here. The wave is out here, and it's happening. It's just, we got to push. We got to push.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to push to get
That's very true. And most importantly, I think now was the time to really understand the business.
Yeah.
Everything, like you said, we're in that streaming era. So we got to account for all the money that's being made.
Yes. Figure out how to make your money.
Yeah.
And have some side hustles. I'm not going to lie. I do voiceovers and jingles and things like that. I teach private voice lessons. I host events sometimes, I'll do like live panel discussions and interviews. You got to have your hands in a couple of pots, whether it be get some merchandise, something, because it is hard out here to make a living purely on music. Even your favorites, Alicia Keys, Ciara, they got makeup lines, they got perfumes, they got clothes, because music solely on recordings, it is tough. It's tough. So, yeah.
Well, like I said, obviously, you're the woman up for the task. Your journey in itself, you had plenty of reason to say, you know what, I think I'm gonna go back to the radio. I think I'm gonna switch it up. No, it's something, that passion still lived and existed inside of you still to this day.
Yeah.
And it shows every time you release another album. So I'm sitting back waiting to see what the next installment is going to be, because I know it's going to be great.
Thank you.
So let the people know where they can get in contact with you, where they can fully support you and buy some of those albums.
Yes, they can find me all over the internet streets. I have a website, deborahbond.com, that has all my shows and ticket links to shows, as well as you can find me on Facebook, Deborah Bond Music at this point, because I think my regular page is full. YouTube, Deborah Bond Music, Instagram at Bora Bond, Twitter at Bora Bond. I'm out here. I ain't hard to find.
That's a fact. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on the platform. This won't be your last time. So anytime you need to get something out.
As you can see, I can talk.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, that's what we want. We had a introduction that was kind of similar, a conversation, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm just a kid that turned into an adult, but I'm still that when it comes to the fan of music, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And knowing true, authentic artists such as yourself. This was a big deal for me, whether anyone understood it or not. For me, I'm like, hold on, this is Ms. Bond. We got to get this interview going ASAP. You know what I mean? So I definitely appreciate you just coming on, blessing the platform.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And let's do it again.
Listen, like I said, anything that you have that you want to promote, just send it over. If you need a platform to express yourself, or even more, get into the YouTube lane. I don't know if you noticed, but if you can somehow jumpstart your YouTube channel, it could be extremely beneficial behind the scenes. I can help as much as I can. Ooh. And listen, I'm telling you, I'm only a couple hours away. I'm in the city, so it ain't that hard to tap in and show love and support, man. I just want to build the relationship, the network, and I want to continue to see you win, man. For real.
Thank you. And likewise, bro. Thank you for having me. I feel this and I appreciate it. And more to come. Yeah.
Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, guys. This is it for Conversations with Rip. We'll catch you at the next one. All right. Peace.